Okay, so today we're talking about camera gear, but more specifically camera gear that I actually use on a regular basis. It's very easy for us here on YouTube to talk about every sort of piece of camera gear that you can possibly buy, but realistically there's only a certain amount of camera gear that we actually use. So for me, this is a list of 5 pieces of camera gear that I use almost on a daily basis. Now, if you do enjoy the video, do hit the like and subscribe button. I'd appreciate it. The first piece of equipment that we're going to be talking about today is actually the camera and lens, and that is the Sony FX30. It's the one that you're watching right now. And although it might not be the best camera in the world, it is probably the most versatile and usable camera that I have, specifically when it comes to video. If I'm wanting to take photos, that's the only time that this falls short, but usually my wife does most of the photos anyway. For video, it just can kind of do everything that you need. It's got the XLR handle, so I can use like a MKH416 like I'm using right now, a shotgun mic, run it straight into the camera. It's got an APS-C sensor, which means that you can basically put any lens that you want on it. Full frame APS-C, you can adapt many other different types of lenses to it. It's got decent dynamic range, it's got a fantastic image quality, you can shoot in a nice log profile. If you use something like the Atomos Ninja V, you can record in ProRes RAW externally, which is really, really cool. You can plug this straight into a computer and use it as a webcam, so it's what I use for my streaming setup. It's just incredibly versatile. You can use it for so many things. And the image quality that comes out of it is fantastic. All of that for $1,800, I think. I think it's a no-brainer. I think it's an absolutely fantastic deal. Currently you're watching it with the Sigma 16mm, but most of the time it is sitting with this on it, and this is the Tamron 17-70, which is a f2.8 zoom lens with a very large zoom range. And f2.8 with image stabilization just kind of does it all. I know it's a little bit larger than what most people want in a lens, but this lens and camera combination can basically do anything that you need. It's wide enough for wide angle shots, and it's telephoto enough to do almost any sort of zoomed in shots that you might want, especially with FX30 having that zoom rocker. Can increase your zoom by 1.5 times, making this even more valuable. So when people ask me what my favorite camera is, currently I think it's the FX30. It doesn't mean it's the best camera in the world, it doesn't mean that it's the best camera for you, but for my purposes, I absolutely love it. Second, let's talk about like stabilization or camera rigging. I love camera rigging equipment. So currently, like this setup that I'm using, I've got a giant C-stand with arms attached to it, and everything is all connected to one C-stand on wheels that I can move around, which I have a video coming out about soon. So I love rigging cameras out, and I love stabilizers. I love using gimbals. I love using sliders. Like I've got a big slider sitting right here, just out of frame. You know, I really enjoy using all of these things, but I don't use them every day. I don't use them on a regular basis, but what I do use almost every single day are tripods. And I'm using this one. This is the SmallRig AD01, I believe it's called. This is like 2 years old, I think. We have about 4 of them here in the studio. It's got a fluid head on it. It's built out of metal. It's got some nice latches. It works really well. It's nothing fancy. It's only like $200 or less, I think. It's not a very expensive tripod. I made a review about it almost 2 years ago now. It's one of the first videos I ever put out on this channel, and it's held up great since the head feels just as fluid as it did back then. I really like it. Now, tripods in my mind are one of the most underrated pieces of equipment that you can get, because, you know, basically every time that you need to have your camera stationary, which is far more than you probably think, tripods are the way to go. Gimbals are great, sliders are great, but you know, they take way more time, they take way more nuance, and half the time a tripod is going to do just as good of a job. If you're looking for a nice panning shot or anything like that, tripods are the way to go. And if you want to know more about that one in particular, do check out that review. It is old, so you know, take that with a grain of salt. I really didn't know what I was doing with YouTube, but everything I say in that video I think holds up today. Now, this channel has mainly grown from talking about camera rigs, right, big cinema rigs, and I've got one coming out about the FX30 soon, but one of the best pieces of a camera rig is a V-mount battery. I absolutely love V-mount batteries, and these ones by SmallRig, the 99 Pros, they're quite expensive. They're about $300, I think, or maybe a little less. But these are one of the most handy pieces of equipment that you can possibly get. And I really do use these every single day. They come in handy in so many different scenarios, and not just for cameras, right? These are great for powering cameras and great for powering lights. But if I'm traveling, or if I'm going somewhere, if I'm on a train, or if I'm in a car and I want to get some work done, maybe I'm using my laptop, I can use this to power my laptop, my phone, my camera, basically anything that you can think of that can be charged over USB-C or DC. You can charge or power with this. So having 2 or 3 of these just in your studio just comes in handy so much more frequently than you think. Even right now, the audio, video, and lighting of this entire shot is all powered from one V-mount battery. Now, yes, these SmallRig ones are quite expensive, but there are many different brands that provide different alternatives. For example, Newer make one that's very, very similar to this, and it's under $200. And it's pretty great. I like this one. One of my favorite things about this battery, one of the coolest things that I wish other companies did is it has this tiny little slot on the top so that whenever you open the latch to reveal all of these, you don't have to deal with this stupid flappy thing. You can just put that right in there and it locks it into place. I cannot tell you how helpful that is. In all of the reviews that I saw, nobody talked about this, right? This is like one of the best things I've ever seen in a VMI battery, is this stupid flap has a way to lock into place. Anyway, next let's talk about audio. Now, this is where I kind of want to get into a couple of specifics about camera gear that I use. My use case for camera equipment is in a studio environment. We have a studio here at our church, which is where I do my YouTube videos. It's also where a friend of mine does his YouTube videos, and it's where we run a few podcasts and all of our talking headshots that we use for our church announcements, all that kind of stuff. So this whole room is designed to be very easy to use. So we have multiple corners and multiple areas of this studio that are mic'd up for different purposes. We have talking headshots, we have a podcast setup, and then we have this setup. And all of those areas can all be run into one audio mixer. This is the one that we choose to use. This is the PodTrack P8 by Zoom, and it is a fantastic audio mixer. It's got 6 XLR inputs, it's got a Bluetooth input, so if you want to call somebody and bring them into a podcast, it's got that, and it also has pre-programmable buttons for inputs that you can pre-program straight into the machine itself. So we have all of the microphones in the room all wired up to this one controller, which can record straight to a regular sized SD. For us, this is a daily driver. We use this all the time for podcasts, for talking headshots, for everything that we do here at our church. You could even use this for live music events if you wanted to. It's just incredibly versatile and fits our use case perfectly. This may not be the right use case for you if you're making YouTube videos and it's just you talking. You don't need something like this. You don't need an 8-channel audio interface. But if you have a studio where you have multiple podcast setups, or if you're a church or you're trying to look for something that can do this, this is the one that we use and we love it. You see, audio is one of those things that is incredibly undervalued in a lot of videos, and I see a lot of people using, these sort of like little wireless setups, and like these are great and these are fun to use, and I use them, and this is the one by Hollyland, or there's obviously the new DJI Wireless 2. They're great options and they work well. But if you're in a studio environment, it's kind of better to just invest into higher quality audio. These are good for scratch audio, or for if you're vlogging and you're out and about, those things are great. But as for being in a studio, you're going to want to be using higher quality microphones once you've sort of sound treated and got your room the way that you want it to. For example, for all of our podcasts, we use the Shure SM7Bs. Personally, I don't really like it on my voice, but for everyone else in our podcast, these work really, really well. I prefer something a little less mid-heavy for my own voice, but that's just an important point. Choose the right microphones for your voice and choose the right interface or audio recording features that you need for your use cases. For us, it's a large 8-channel recorder. For you, it might not be. Lastly, let's talk about lights. Now, this whole studio is rigged up with lights all around the room, for window lights, key lights, accent lighting, all that kind of stuff. One of my favorite lights that I use all the time that are really portable are the Nanlite Pavo tubes. Now, we just use the cheap versions, okay? So the main versions are like $400 for like one Pavo tube. This is their T87X or T78X. I can't exactly remember. All the links are in the description below. But you can get a pack of 4 of these for $400. Now, the quality of these lights is not quite as high as their main Pavo tubes, which are much more rugged, much more durable, and have much longer battery life. But if you're just in a YouTube studio and you're willing to plug them in, set them up around the room, use them for accent lighting like this, or this little side light that's coming and giving me this hair light, these things are perfect. They're RGB, they have great color accuracy, and they're incredibly easy to use. They've just got 3 little buttons on the end there, and it can power and charge over USB-C. So these are just incredibly handy, and for $400 getting 4 of them is fantastic. I ended up picking up 6. I use a couple at my home gaming studio where I do some streaming, and I use them here in this recording studio, giving us accent lighting all around the room for either our podcast or for just these talking headshots. So that's a quick fire round of 5 pieces of camera equipment that I use every single day. This is not a recommendation that you have to buy all of these pieces. For my use case here in a studio, these work perfectly. If you have a different use case, like you're a wedding videographer or a photographer, these might not be a good list for you. So I want to know what your list is. Drop it in the comment down below. Tell me 5 pieces of equipment that you use on a regular basis. And if you've enjoyed the video, do hit the like button, drop a comment down below, or maybe even subscribe as we continue to build this channel. I appreciate all of you for doing so, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.